A real pleasure to host Tammie Hilend today. She's CIO at Maxar. It's a space company that she'll talk about a little bit more. At the start of the pandemic, the COO, Jeff Robertson, had come in and he had described the amazing protocol they had to put in place given the businesses they're in. So it'd be nice to get an update from Tammie. In addition, though, Tammie defines work from anywhere. She's been working from her RV. She's going to talk a lot about how, in her facilities role, she's been encouraging or looking at the hybrid model, as she calls it. Tammie, thank you for joining me. Tell everybody about your remarkable career. I've known you about 15 years.
Oh. Thanks so much for having me, Vinny. It's great to be here. So as you know, my roots are really in IT infrastructure, but I've served in a number of application development, business strategy, and execution roles at Siemens Communications, Kaiser Permanente, ADT Security, and for 5 years now at Maxar. So I'm pretty passionate about leveraging technology to unlock new markets, bring it to bear. And I was just so fascinated by the mission at Maxar, and space is the new frontier as far as I think the problems that we're going to solve. We're just beginning to scratch the surface. So I'm also probably known as a bit of a merger and acquisition maven. With the most recent here is number 44 in my career.
Tammie, like I said, amazing career. Thank you for doing it in 2 minutes. I thought you'd spend 20 minutes talking about your career. Let's talk a little bit about Maxar. I mean, it must have been quite a year, right? Quite a few space missions. Amazing in the crazy year we've had. Space has become so important again, right? So much in the news.
It has been. When we think of pandemic response, I think of other disasters and crisis response I've been involved in, whether it's hurricanes or earthquakes or otherwise. And what's been really exceptional about this is Maxar didn't just go into survival mode, which is typical in a crisis response of, okay, let's just hunker down and weather the storm. Maxar is really bullish, and we are growing the business. We did an acquisition during the pandemic. So we're fortunate with our work from home journey. Been in the process of integrating 4 different companies to become Maxar. So, IT is usually one of the first in. And so we've been working on really integrating the networks and being opportunistic, modernizing and hardening our environment as we go. So
this is in addition to work from home.
Well, that was underway before, yes. And so we're in the midst of that type of activity when the pandemic hit, which was a little chaotic, but it was also very fortunate because we had migrated everyone to Zoom, everyone to Slack. We had standardized our endpoints and increased bandwidth on our VDI and VPN environments. So really within 2 weeks, 80% of our workforce was working from home quite successfully. Hardware, we had not refreshed everyone, and we had a mix of BYOD and corporate devices. So we actually, in the midst of the pandemic, rolled out around another, our workforce is only 4,600 people. So we rolled out about 800 units just to shore up in the midst of the pandemic. And we also provided a stipend to our employees because we didn't want a bunch of folks coming on site, putting their health at risk to retrieve equipment. So we actually provided a stipend and said, here's $400. You can use it for any sort of peripheral, not the PC itself, but any sort of peripheral or desk chair to make yourself comfortable. So I think that focus on the people was really appreciated, and folks have really risen to the occasion. So,
Tammie, you're not a typical company, right? You do a lot of sensitive classified work. So I'm sure it wasn't as easy as you're making it sound. But
Well, we have, so the 20% that are working on site are really in our space infrastructure segment. So those are the folks that are manufacturing satellites, robotics, that type of thing. And then we have other folks that some are on site full time supporting our missions as far as command and control of our fleet of satellites, or in the classified environments. The classified environments were more kind of shift driven. So people come in and then they're able to do some work from home. So that was a fair amount of coordination and orchestration. So having responsibility for the facility side, things that, how do we ensure social distancing within a skiff, which is already pretty tight. So we did some reconfiguration pretty quickly. We laid in a new resource scheduler, a plug-in to Outlook, so that folks can actually schedule resources and come in. Previously, because we weren't as tight on space, we didn't have to social distance, people would just drop in and it was less of an issue. So it took a little bit of work, and we did just a ton of things from a health and safety perspective for the folks that were on site, as far as additional um, cleaning and supplies. We installed needlepoint ionization in our facilities to really improve the quality and capture the air contaminants. So that was a whole nother job. I'm not going to lie, besides
part of
my
your
day job. But
part of your facility is focus, right? I mean, I'm sure you had to
yes,
do that in a whole bunch of. And by the way, you didn't even mention you're doing an SAP upgrade in the midst of all this.
we are. So we had slowed down just a little bit, but we did sign with SAP in June, and that's well underway. And we're expecting to bring up the first few modules from a corporate perspective in our space infrastructure business in January. We also migrated all 40, we stood up GovCloud, Microsoft Office 365, because we were originally down a path of a commercial tenant and we're halfway there, but our business strategy has evolved to much more government missions, and the requirements from our customers have increased. So a big push for NIST 800-171 compliance. And so we took a pause, stood up a GovCloud tenant, migrated all 4,600 employees and a number of shared mailboxes in the middle of the pandemic, completely remote. So the team got pretty clever with ways to do kind of traditional in-person support entirely remotely in multiple time zones around the world. Um, we also did a big push around data classification. So really thinking about our data, whether it's unstructured data or source code or imagery, and how we classify it and how we affect a culture change across the organization on handling the data, because that was so important to go hand in hand with um, both the uh, Microsoft 365 migration as well as our AWS cloud migration. We've been aggressively moving in that direction. And we had um, Vricon acquisition. So this is a
Yeah,
new wholly owned subsidiary, Vricon. So we had been in a joint venture. They provide 3D algorithms, and it's uh, pretty amazing technology. So bringing that together with our other offerings, and we completed that, the base IT integration in less than 6 months. And oh, by the way, we did a divestiture too. We divested McDonald Dottweiler, the Canadian entity, and completed that one in 6 months as well. So it's we've not been bored.
It's amazing you had any time to sleep, Tammy.
Sleep is overrated, Vinny. You know that.
So let's talk a little bit about your facilities stuff. I mean, clearly
Hmm.
it's exciting, all the work from anywhere, but you're taking work from anywhere to a whole new level.
Yes, I mean, I'm certainly we're empty nesters, and I was eager to get out a bit, but wanted to do so safely because most of my family is on the East Coast and we're in Colorado. So we rented a couple last year and decided to go on the road. And I also look at it as um, a personal experience in the future of work because I think this pandemic has changed us forever. We have learned at all levels of the organization that we can be highly effective remotely. So, started some serious thinking about this, discussions with HR, with Maxar leadership on what's the purpose of the office now, right? We know we need it for um, our clients to come in to do executive briefings. We know that we need it for manufacturing satellites, for classified environments. But when we talk about commercial purposes, what is it that people need? So we've, with our partners in HR, we've conducted an employee survey, and those results have been really insightful as far as people want flexibility. They value, you know, the flexibility, reduced commute time, being able to balance work with their families and their lifestyles. So we're working on a hybrid model, which would enable folks to come to the office. Some of the initial insights that are most interesting is um, it's really about strategic collaboration. If you're doing deep thinking around new markets, new product offerings, um, complex technical designs, even with some of the collaboration tools that we find, folks have overwhelmingly said they really need that in person to be able to read body language and be able to work more quickly on those complex problems where um, general meetings, email, kind of task level work, um, folks feel they're more productive at home. They have fewer interruptions, and certainly uh, once kids return to school, I think that will improve as well. It's been a bit daunting. So we are really working to understand what the purpose is about, what the purpose of the office is about, how teams can be most effectively, um, and we're really looking forward to it. And this has been insightful for me, being on the road for almost 5 weeks out of an RV. Um, you know, cellular services and um, data is much more accessible than it was even 5 years ago. So I've had um, very little issues with bandwidth or network connectivity. Um,
Tammy, let's come back to your personal experience.
mhm.
As you look at the future of work, where are you? Who are you turning to? Your peers, academics? Because it was such a shock to the work environment, right? I mean, just where are you finding your inspiration?
Well, I've read tons of white papers. I had, conversations with Gartner, with PwC. Slack has um, a consortium called Future Forum that has been really, really great to connect with and get some of those learnings. Um, some of our facilities partners have done quite a bit of work on kind of time and motion and what does a collaborative workspace look like in the office. So um, that's been the majority of my reading the last 6 months, a ton of that. So outreach with other companies, hearing directly from employees and a survey that went to every single employee. And we're now sitting down with the level 2 and L3 leaders um, to have a discussion. So we do kind of an eligibility. Do you do these one of these five things? And if you do, then you're not really eligible to work for work hybrid because of the type of work. But then we get into, you know, how your team operates because the way the um, legal department functions and their needs is really quite different than a software engineering team. And so the way we're thinking about it is um, we want to do this so it meets the needs of the business. It helps our teams be most productive. And so we've got to roll up our sleeves and really listen and formulate approaches that are flexible, not totally dictated, but kind of some guidelines and some consistent tools so that the teams can really do their best work.
And the employees are reacting fairly well to them, or is it big adjustment for them?
I would say it's a big adjustment. Some of us have been talking and thinking about this for about 8 months, and some folks um, are on a different end of the spectrum, where I think they really hoped that things would return to normal and they would go back to the way things were before. So, like any major change, people are on different um, places of the change management curve. So that's why we're not trying to rush this. I think it's important we think about work hybrid as a post-pandemic um, situation, that it's not about just returning, while we're still in pandemic response. I think if we conflate those, um, it'll backfire on us, quite honestly.
Well, we'll have to bring you back in about six
Mhm.
to 9 months because I'm sure your thinking will have evolved quite a bit. And certainly that way your employees will have evolved as we come out of this, right? Let's talk about your RV experience. So
Yes.
tell me, let's talk bandwidth first. Is it satellite communication? I mean, obviously, with Starlink, people are getting all excited about satellite-based internet. But how have you connected? Tell us all the gory details.
Honestly, I just, bought a new Netgear, decent bandwidth, MiFi, and then I have an antenna that extends the signal when I'm in a little more of a remote location that has actually proved quite successful. Um, I'm really excited about Starlink and the potential of that. I mean, I think Maxar from our satellite um, manufacturing and space infrastructure. Um, Really, the heritage is in communication satellites. So we have uh, over 90 satellites on orbit, and most of those are communication satellites. So while we don't see ourselves getting into a provider type of service, we do manufacture satellites for a number of the providers. So it'll be really great to see the SpaceX offering.
So, what has I mean, you're doing all that you described, and you're trying to do that from an RV.
Mhm.
Tell me what has worked well, what could be better.
Um, I think that a lot of it is just a learning experience as far as we are. Um, we left Denver a day and a half before receiving 2 feet of snow, and that was by design, and headed south. So I think from a lifestyle perspective, I've become more obsessed with the weather patterns than ever before, and recognize that we're weather fleers. So as we got on the road, we first escaped the snowstorm, and then we went down to uh, Corpus Christi, Mustang Island, while the tornadoes were blowing through the panhandle. So we were able to avoid those. So I think that's the big thing. Um, we're probably moving a little more quickly than is ideal. And we're staying anywhere from 3 to 6 days in a given location. And some days uh, my husband's driving and I'm in the back of the RV. So it can be a little distracting when I've got movement. Today I'm not moving or we're in place, but that can be a little distracting. So I would we'll do less of that. I think actually being put, setting up camp, having meetings, and then traveling on days off is probably a little bit better set up. But um, I've been in motion. Yesterday was a travel day, and I think I had 8 meetings while I was on the road. So.
How do people react when you say, I'm doing this from an RV? Are people like, do they think she's really
Well,
vacationing?
most people are excited. They're like, how's it going? How's it, that's exciting. So people are excited about the possibility, and I think also a little surprised. I mean, it's unconventional, but if I'm, you know, leading IT and facilities, I need to think outside the box. I need to be innovative and kind of drink my own champagne, so to speak. So I'm all in. I believe people can work from most anywhere. It's controlling your immediate environment.
Tammy, I believe you when you say it's more stressful when you're traveling.
Mhm.
This is putting another level of demand on you. People probably think, oh God, she's in an RV, she's having, it must be comfortable. But doing it on the road is never easy. So kudos.
Thank you. It's actually pretty cozy. We do have a king size bed in this beast, so.
Yeah, but all right. Um, so you're rolling out this new work hybrid. Um, I'm just, I can't even grapple with all the IT work you have to manage and the facilities work you have to manage. What's how are you splitting time?
I can't say it's 50-50. It's probably more about like 60-60. It just really ebbs and flows. Uh, I would say it's more facility centric when we've got kind of a spike in COVID activity. Um, from an IT perspective, we operate in a scaled agile format. So kind of the cadence of quarterly planning, making sure we're staying on top of the sprints. So that time just at the um, around quarterly planning and execution is probably spike time for IT, but um, it's not
You're,
a
you're
it's not
just
an even split.
you're just so calm about it. Now tell me, are you gonna give up that gorgeous headquarters building as a result?
No, we don't have plans for that, but we may depending on what our analysis tells us and the feedback, we may reconfigure it a bit. But I don't see us leaving that building.
Well,
It's, I
because I'm
think,
looking,
evolving, as far as um, more of an executive briefing center might be more appropriate, but it's still early. It's still very early, Vinny, to say how this may or may not influence our facility strategy. I think we're open to the possibilities. We're listening to folks, and we are formulating a strategy. But it's still a little early to say what it might mean for our facility strategy.
I look forward to visiting you in that facility. I love that headquarters building. One final question on the satellite internet. I've heard it's optimized much more for downloads versus uploads. Do you know if you have much flexibility in how you can how you can reconfigure that?
Um, I I really can't say.
But you haven't
So
had, you haven't had issues doing Zoom calls or
none,
yeah,
none at all. So.
then you don't need to reconfigure. I've heard a couple of people in rural locations who said their upload speeds was very low. Download was fine, upload was a little, but doesn't sound like you have that issue. So
I haven't experienced that so far. So I'll try to be a little more aware and report back and let you know.
not if you, I don't want to jinx it. Just keep doing what you're doing. What? Any other thoughts?
No, it was just great to catch up. I mean, we've known one another for a long time and done work together in many of the companies I've worked for. So it's just great to see you and how your career has evolved and um, doing these blogs. So it was good to see you, Vinny.
Tammie, thank you so much. Drive safe, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you and Jeff pretty soon.
Great. Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.